I'm Eileen Nash. Join me every week as we meet interesting people who will teach you new, creative ways to manage stress and embrace vitality in your life. Grab a cup of tea and join me for this adventure. Did you know that singing can be a practice to soothe your soul, manage stress, and enhance your sense of community? My guests bring 3 different perspectives on the power of music in our everyday lives.
And it goes, March Madness is coming.
Hi, we're in Simsbury, Connecticut with Ellen Gilson-Voth. She is the director of the Farmington Valley Chorale. And so, Ellen, thank you so much for being on the show.
You're welcome.
And could you tell me, you've been doing this for about 10 years as a director, and how did this become your life's purpose?
As we were talking earlier, I can't remember a time when I wasn't making music at some level. I have vivid memories at the piano at an early age. But I think what drew me to conducting is because all of the different passions that I've had for music over time have come together in conducting. So whether that's piano or voice, vocal study, gestural study at the podium, study of music history, music theory, all of those things really converge. Diction, language, in choral conducting in a unique way. And what I see I'm so fortunate to be able to do that with other people. So many aspects of music can be very individual and it's sometimes isolating, but when you come together and you're conducting a rehearsal, you're doing it with people, and there's a certain energy that comes and then feeds upon itself with that. So I find that very gratifying. And this is my 10th year with chorale, and the first time we've ever performed Mendelssohn's Elijah, so it's an ideal time for you to be coming and talking with us.
I've seen you in action, and you are a great leader. You have a capacity to inspire people, but can you tell me a little bit about that process, how you hold this container for people?
The container for people. Well, one thing, as I always say to people after our concerts, that it takes a team. And we have a fantastic team. We have a very loyal board of directors who work tirelessly on all of the administrative aspects. So that really frees me to be able to do the focus on score study, on language, on preparation for rehearsal week to week, as well as the other tasks, which would be hiring soloists, working with our accompanists, and the long-range vision and planning for our programming season to season. So I'm very fortunate in that way. But I'm also fortunate because the music itself gives me a lot of energy, and that's what I can bring then to our singers, which I think makes our rehearsals and our community an attractive and a magnetic place to be.
For people, there's a lot of different benefits to being in a chorale group. If a viewer out there wanted to join a group like this, how could they find out about it?
There are a lot of resources. Certainly, you go on the internet. If you were to type in community chorus or community choir and give the city and state, many times you'll come directly to a long list of website links. But there are also some larger organizations like ACDA, American Choral Directors Association, as well as Chorus America, which can provide links. But certainly they are all over. Some are men, some are women, some are mixed, some large, some small. So all different flavors, some that are auditioned, some non-auditioned. So all different flavors that you can find, but definitely the information's out there if people are looking for it.
If a person did not grow up in a musical family or doesn't know how to read music, can they still be a part of something like this?
What I always tell people is that it's never too late to start. It's an advantage if you've had that experience and training all along, but even if you haven't, as long as you come and you're coming with a teachable spirit that's open, you may be learning some music that is familiar, you may learn some that's very new, but as long as you come with that openness and responsiveness to a director who might work with you individually or as a section, and recognize that you may have a perception of your own voice, but because we are our own acoustical instrument, we can't hear ourselves as we really sound. So as long as you're willing to trust somebody else's ears and know that that person has the bigger goal of the performance in mind, that to know to come and yes, by all means, there's really never a place where you say it's too late to start as long as you come with that sort of openness and desire to learn and to move yourself towards the goal of performance.
So if a person wants to sing but they're hesitating and they want to practice at home or whatever, what words of advice would you give them to be able to even make that leap to come and meet a person like you?
Well, I would say certainly practicing at home by all means. We're fortunate because we carry our instruments with us, so we're not dependent upon, the fine-tuning of a reed, right? We always have it with us. So yes, by all means, sing as much as possible. I think one of the opportunities we have to be able to make music with our families, or in some cases our churches, those things are very valuable. But also to note that coming doesn't need to be intimidating, because a group like ours, for example, here in Chorale, is open to all. So there's no audition, and we do have a lot of singers that have a lot of experience and have sung with many groups, and others for whom this process is new. So to know that, there's a place for you no matter how much experience you bring, and you don't need to be intimidated so much as know that it's going to be a positive, confidence-building experience to be a part of it.
Well, I've observed the group here. My husband's in this choral group, and there's a big sense of community, and I've felt the joy in the room. But thank you for joining me today.
Well, thank you. It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you. So today our guest is Patty Colburn, and I met her through my husband, who's in several singing groups, and she told me her story, a very moving story about how being a part of singing chorale groups really had a large impact on her life. So thank you so much for being here, Patty.
It's good to see you.
Yeah, it's great to have you on the show. So can you tell me about your history with singing? You started as a very young girl.
Yes. My mother was a pianist, and I started probably at the piano with her at age 5 or 6, and I took lessons from her, and then she was the director of the little children's choir at church, and so I joined the choir and did piano and singing all the way up through about middle school. And then I decided I really liked the singing. I really thought that was what I was actually wanted to do. And when I went through high school, I studied very seriously. I took voice lessons. I was in all state choirs and all Eastern choirs. And then I actually was a music major in college. But I got about to my sophomore year and kind of said, well, maybe this isn't going to be for me. So I decided to switch majors, and it became something I did on the side. I joined theater groups. I met my husband through singing.
I know, in high school.
In high school. We were high school sweethearts, and we met through singing. And we did theater in Simsbury for 20 years with the Simsbury Light Opera Company, and now currently are in the Hartford Chorale and the Farmington Valley Chorale. So music is my life.
You've expressed it brings you a lot of joy, and you have quite a bit of passion for it. And in fact, your children are in the arts as well.
Yes, my daughter is also a singer and played the flute and the alto saxophone. My son is a singer as well, only he's out in Los Angeles trying to make it in the film industry, but in the arts. Most members of my family sing, or they play an instrument, or are involved in the arts in some way. So it's a family tradition.
You told me a special story about how when your mother passed, she actually went quite quickly from October, and then in December she was gone.
Right.
So, and you mentioned that singing actually helped you make it through that emotionally and psychologically. So can you tell me a little bit about that, or our viewers?
Sure. My mother, as you said, she went very quickly. She was hospitalized in October. This was 2014, and was diagnosed with lung cancer in November, and 5 weeks later, she passed away. And for me, I spent 10 to 12 hours a day at the hospital, every day with my father and with my mother. And for me, It was very, very difficult. It was the first passing of someone close to me in my family. I had not gone through the experience before. And I thought the only thing that could keep me on an even keel and sane and able to continue was singing. So I continued my singing with both of my singing groups. And the empathy and the love and the just the making music, being part of a group of people that were all together with the same goal, really helped me kind of wash away the experience every night, and it kind of gave me the strength to wake up the next morning and say, okay, I can go back again for another 10 or 12 hours at the hospital, because it kind of cleansed my soul and gave me strength to, get up the next day. And it's, maybe others might not have that kind of experience, but for me, I think it's because it's such a part of me that something like that gave me a sense of normal.
I think that is a beautiful story, because when you're singing, I've seen you. You're in the moment,
Right.
and everyone's in the moment with you.
Right. Right.
I read some research that you shared with me that in the group, their heartbeats will synchronize.
Yes. Yes.
And-
that is very true. The heartbeats are synchronized with the melody. So melodies that go up, melodies go down, that kind of thing. But the heart rates tend to, they stay. And anytime you can, stabilize your heart rate or your pulse, it's a good thing. So I think that also they talk about people who suffer from depression, people who are anxious, anxiety. Singing produces oxytocin and other endorphins that, just like a runner might get endorphins as they have their marathon, high, if that's what you want to call it. It's the same thing with singing. You get an actual high. And I think people forget that singing is not only mental, it's physical. So you are physically, you sing, you don't sing from your throat. Everyone thinks, oh, you just sing from your throat. That's not true. You sing from your diaphragm. So you're supporting your diaphragm, and that's a physical action. And so it takes a lot. So it's a very physically demanding thing. Opera singers, people who are professionals, that's a very demanding kind of thing. But I think that people forget that there's a whole physical as well as mental aspect to singing.
If someone wanted to try singing, what encouragement would you give them?
It's funny. I have gone through my life singing, knowing people that sing. Most of my friends are musicians or singers. So I kind of am always interested that there are people in the world who cannot sing or are not musicians, or, it's just kind of, it's so natural to me and inbred and born in me. But I really think that anybody can try. You can join a group. I would really encourage it. I think that just the social aspect of it is really worth the price of admission, if that's what you want to call it. It's a wonderful experience, and I would absolutely recommend it highly to anybody.
I so appreciate you being on the show today.
It was wonderful. It was really wonderful. Thank you for having me and allowing me to share my story.
Oh, great. So, if you have any interest in singing, consider reaching out to a group, a choral director, someone at your religious institution if they sing, and think about joining in. When you sing, musical vibrations move through you, altering your physical and emotional landscape. There are many clinical studies on the internet, especially from the UK and in Germany, plus the US, that they show psychological and physical benefits of choral singing. It's been shown to regulate the heart rate in clinical research done by the University of Gothenburg. It reduces stress levels and depression, and there are a number of studies highlighting the mental health benefits of singing. It's been shown to boost oxytocin levels, which control stress and anxiety. And at the Cardiff University, a study was done that was in 2012, and it showed lung cancer patients that engaged in choral singing had greater expiratory capacity against a control group of non-lung cancer patients. That's pretty exciting. There is a choir group also called the Skylarks for people with Parkinson's disease. The participants explained that their voice had been strengthened despite having Parkinson's for several years. The improvements are thought to be from deep breathing and extended use of the vocal cords. Research has also shown an improved feeling of social well-being. Choral singers reported a higher rate of social well-being than solo singers in this study. And there was a very interesting study done with both Harvard and Yale University, published in 2008, that had the positive finding of increased life expectancy of people in a town in Connecticut who were choral singers. So you can see that there are many benefits to singing. Hi, I'm here today with Dr. Ed Bolkovac, who is my guest expert about choral music. Tell us a little bit more about your professional background.
Well, I started studying in Pittsburgh, later at Duquesne University, later went to Hungary for 3 years, back in the days of socialism.
Where you met your wife.
That's where I met my wife. Then came back to the States again, got my first college job in California, in the San Francisco Bay Area. While I was there, I did my doctorate at Stanford, moved on to go to Australia for 4 years and teach, and then I came back to the East Coast, and here I am at the Hart School.
That's an adventurous story.
It was lots of fun.
Yeah. So what is your personal background that brought you to where you are today, being a professor?
Well, I always liked music. When I was a child, I played piano, but I really got my start mostly playing in rock bands. I played in rock bands, blues bands. I played in a funk band for a while. And then I knew I wanted to study music, and that's when the world of classical music began to open up for me, and that's sort of led me to what I'm doing now. But it was really actually playing in bands.
Could you just tell us your thoughts about the necessity of music in our human life?
Well, I think we all need some sense of transcendency in our lives. And the thing about music, it allows, no matter what genre of music it is, whether it's pop music, classical music, R&B, hip-hop, I think the best of that kind of music allows people to transcend their daily lives and to experience something that's greater. And I think that's my attraction to it anyway. And certainly when you're teaching, you're trying to let glimpses of that come through to the students.
Yes.
Yeah.
One of the things that I observe in myself and others is that they maybe like to sing, but their inner critic comes up, and so then they go, no, I'm not going to sing. What kind of tools do you teach your students or use in class to get around that?
For me, a sense of humor, I think, is really important, because I think especially in classical music, it has, rightly or wrongly, a reputation for being stuffy and sort of creating the atmosphere that you actually mentioned. But what I try to do is just have a sense of humor, because if you can do that, humor always tends to break down barriers and whatnot. And also in terms of, I guess you could probably say all genres of music, but for me, since I studied in Hungary, the philosophy of Kodály was kind of an important element. He was influential in inspiring a music education system which bears his name, although he actually didn't create the method himself. But one of the things that he always said was, music allows you to be engaged mentally, it allows you to be engaged orally, it allows you to be engaged physically, and it allows you to be engaged spiritually. And I think it's engaging people on those four levels is what makes music successful, and which also can give it the transcendent quality that we talked about earlier.
Yes, and one of the aspects about music that I know from my husband, who's in choral groups, is about the importance of the present moment. Mm-hmm. And
well, that's actually another thing that relates. You were talking about teaching, because my life experience has taught me that if you're thinking about the past, you're either angry about something that happened in the past, or you're distracting yourself about something that was good in the past, but in either case, you're not present. And of course, if you're worrying about something that might happen in the future, or if you're dreaming about what might happen in the future, you're actually not present. And I think music is one of the arts that actually allows you to achieve a moment of presence. I mean, I direct a choir in New Haven as well, and there's a lot of doctors in the choir, and they say that if you engage in singing or in music making, those four things that I mentioned, your ear, your mind, your body, and your spirit all become engaged. And when that happens, your brain begins to create new neural pathways, and it creates adrenaline, it creates the effects of caffeine, it creates the effects of antihistamines. And I can go to a rehearsal really feeling ill. And if I engage those four areas for the time that I'm actually at the rehearsal, and it can also be true for the people who are singing, that sense of presence allows something transformative to happen. And there's a lot of research that says it's actually can be physically proven when you engage those things. Now, an hour and a half after the rehearsal, when those four areas aren't engaged in the same unified, intense way, you may feel exactly like you did before. But for that moment of presence, it's pretty powerful, or can be pretty powerful.
It's quite elevating to even just be a listener. I can't identify tones, etc. Is this something you have taught ear training?
Well, Kodai claims that on a certain level, everybody has accessibility, and it is able to get in touch with the ability to hear and to appreciate music, which is one of the tenets of the method that bears his name, which is that everybody should sing. Everybody should receive music education. And so he was under the, he strongly believes that everybody can learn how to sing. Doesn't mean everybody's going to sing at the Metropolitan Opera or have a fantastic rock and roll career, but everybody is able to sing. And the health benefits, let alone the spiritual benefits of it, are more and more proven by science.
I actually had goosebumps while you talked about that, because I think it is important for everyone to sing. It opens up a different part of your experience. And so, since you have experience in many places in the world with your travels and your teaching, how would you suggest that someone in a country outside of the United States could perhaps connect with a choral group or find out about performances?
Well, I think
ways?
actually most countries are doing these things, and the web, the internet is the most incredible tool, because you can be sitting in any place in the world and type in your location and write in singing, or write in almost anything, and immediately almost too many sources come up immediately for how you can become connected. But we find that with my community choir, lots of people find out about it by trolling the web, and they put the city and what they want to do, and then the possibilities. So I'd say a healthy use of the internet is a great way to find out what's going on.
Now, you've written some books, and one in particular that's used for teaching.
Well, I wrote a couple collection of rounds or canons, and the one that seems to be the most popular is actually geared towards younger children, because rounds, of course, are simple melodies that when you start at a different time, they sound really good together, okay? And so a friend of mine from Australia and I got together and spent a year making a collection of what we thought were the rounds that were the best for teaching. They're in multiple languages as well, lots of Spanish, some Hebrew, lots of English. And that collection has sort of really taken off. So that's one. But again, it's to promote singing with younger children and as a teaching aid for people that are working with children, that particular collection, yeah.
And how can people sort of connect with you? And you have a great website. I saw it.
It began when I was in the Bay Area writing these things while I was driving in my car. That's why it's called Meditations of a Commuter, because I was always commuting when the random thoughts would pop into my head. And so that website contains lots of classical music. It has a lot of like electronic music, original music, and it has overtone singing and all sorts of things like that, and articles and also in some cases slideshows to go along with that, which might interest people who have that sort of philosophical bent and see music in that particular light.
Well, I checked it out, and I think it's a fabulous website.
Oh, thanks.
And there's
It's always under construction, however.
Yeah, of course. All websites are. That's one thing people don't understand.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Dr. Bolkovac, and I appreciate your time today, sharing
it's a
your
pleasure.
insights.
Thank you very much.
On next week's episode of Restore Your Caring Soul, my special guest is Dr. Stephen Farmer, PhD. He is a soul healer, shamanic practitioner, ordained minister, and licensed psychotherapist. He's the author of numerous books and card decks on animal spirit guides. Tune in next week to find out about your animal spirit guide.